Hello, white man. Hello. Sorry. What a weird thing to say. But from you, it's not weird, but it's funny, though. Hello, white man. Hello. How are you? But yeah, so I watched this video this morning while I was at work. Well, I didn't watch it. I was listening to it because I was driving. I posted it in the Discord earlier. I just thought it was very poignant. It is called How Conservatives Ruined Marriage by Leeja Miller. I've only recently gotten her some of her stuff. She's very smart, and she backs up a lot of her stuff with like data and analysis and like really deep academic analysis. So I really enjoyed listening to it. I thought there was a lot of good points, and because it is technically React style comment and commentary, I will be pausing it and adding my own 2 cents as we go on. I don't think I really had any disagreements on this video personally.
So we live in a very complex world where it's difficult to identify women that are marriage material.
If you guys' method is so good, why aren't you married?
Again, because men are the ones that decide if they want to get married.
Choice.
So you choose not to be married. Do you plan on getting married someday? Do you think it's important?
Eventually, the nuclear family is the backbone to any thriving society. But a lot of guys don't have that ability to find a woman that's worthy.
You don't have that ability.
Sorry.
I don't have that ability.
You're not married.
The political gender gap.
First of all, I have to just say, Ethan Klein has fallen off a lot. Ever since October 7th, he said a lot of fucked up stuff about Palestinians and stuff. He's not a Zionist, by the way, for those who think that he is. He's just a very two-sideser. Now, that being said, however, Ethan fucking crushed that confrontation with Myron, I believe is his name is. He's part of the Fresh and Fit podcast.
Bad news for hetero marriages everywhere. Now that women can do things like get an education and open a bank account without a husband, the majority of divorces are being initiated by women. Instead of attempting to, I don't know, do better, conservative men would rather just remove women's rights from the marriage equation altogether.
When I talk about like dating as a man, as I talk about like modern, like how to be better, this is exactly what I'm referring to. It's like, you can either do one of two things. Look outward and point your finger at all the things you don't like about society, or you can look inward and go, well, what am I doing wrong? And a lot of these conservative men will not do that because again, conservative ideology in the terms of marriage, one man, one woman, to make babies, women subservient, men dominant. That is a standard to stereotypical conservative ideology on marriage. The thing about conservatives in general is that they do typically have a lot more stringent rules to follow, whereas people on the left, even liberals, have less rules in these regards, like social norm rules, whereas conservatives, they do. Whereas like women are supposed to be subservient, men are supposed to be dominant. Even though ironically, a lot of conservatives secretly don't necessarily care about those things, which is true. They believe that because it is the natural way of life, or God-given, sometimes it's a religious thing, most of the time it's a religious thing, that's the case.
Conservatives yearn for the good old days when relationships were so much simpler, back before women had so many rights and still needed a husband to function in society, when marriage was an institution, not a partnership. Since the feminist and psychological movements of the 20th century, marriage has been evolving towards a partnership or soulmate.
I think that really does do a good job at summing it up. You know what I mean? Like, do you view marriage as an institution, or do you view marriage as an expression of love and personal achievement? Like, I think that's kind of the two perspectives that a lot of people have. And if you go into a couple or a relationship with the idea that you guys are sharing something and you guys are trying to build a partnership and to better yourself, because that's a lot of the modern, and she'll talk about this too, but a lot of the modern marriages, one of the reasons why they work well is because of self-betterment. Because when you have a partner, you want to be better yourself. This was the case with me in my last relationship. Obviously, it didn't go very well, but I still bettered myself, and now I'm even better than I was post-breakup. I mean, post-breakup, I was messy as fuck. But, like, lessons learned, advice given, advice received, growth. Blech. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're going into a relationship with the idea that it's a partnership and you guys are trying to make each other better, great. If you guys are doing it because you're like, well, we must maintain the bloodline and you must keep the house clean. It's like, well, it's like having a job, at that point, which is miserable because life isn't about working on it. This is the shit that I fucking love. I love it when, and this is like why Leisha's awesome. It's like, here's the fucking data. You want to argue with the data? Now, to be fair, these are just numbers. You have to be able to interpret them. The thing about data is a lot of like conservative people will look at this and then they'll immediately go, well, clearly it is wrong. A wide ideology gap is opening between young men and women in countries across the world. Political ideology, 18 to 29s. So basically, people in range of chat. I'm a little older, but I'd still think this basically applies to my age range as well. I'm 33, but still like, it's still basically the same shit. You can see the drop off. Now, obviously, here's the United States right here, but it's insane. I mean, to be fair, to give men some credit but besides South Korea, 'cause South Korea, holy shit, like goddamn. But on the United States, at least, it's like, yeah, we have a drop off, but like this shows me that there's a lot of room to bring it back. You know what I mean? Whereas like Germany, yeah, Germany's been having a problem. I've actually been seeing a lot of that in Germany lately. But anyway. So, like, to break that down even further, like, to kind of, to yes and what she was saying, there is a common goal amongst every country about population. Population is actually a marker of a successful country or not. So when you see a population increase, it's typically the sign of prosperity. When you see, hence, baby boomers. During the time of baby boomers, mostly for white people, let's be honest, and white men in particular, let's be honest, you know, even though we are especially at that point, we're definitely a predominantly white country. The economy was good. World War II was over. We were getting involved into other wars, but nothing nearly as big. The tax rate to the richest was like fucking 90% or something like that. Like, it was insane. The economy was booming, houses everywhere, people fucking like crazy and having babies like mad. And that was the sign of a very prosperous time. In fact, ironically, that is the time that Donald Trump is referring to when he says make America great again. He's referring to that. Ironically, though, he's not interested in raising the tax rate to 90% on rich people. In fact, he's interested in cutting the tax rate on rich people. That being, going back to what my original point was, higher populations is a sign of prosperity in a country. So if a country is the sign, we have a declining birth rate in our country. And the declining birth rate in our country is panicking a lot of conservatives in particular, because that they love that measurement of population as a form of success. And that also means more population, more workers, right? Now, on the one hand, when we age and as our grandparents and parents die off, which I'm obviously not looking forward to, and I'm sure none of us are, we're going to have basically just hundreds of thousands of just empty homes, because there's going to be such a population drop off, right? But the population is declining, and it's because our generation, Gen X, is the first one, but millennials and Gen Z in particular are the big ones that are starting having as many kids, because there's no economic incentive. Unfortunately, they incentivize young, poor women to have non-fathered children. I mean, they don't really incentivize it as much as they are trying to force women to do it. Like conservative again. And liberals are not doing this. Liberals don't do this. Leftists don't do this. Socialists don't do this. Conservatives do this. If you have a kid, they want you to keep your kid, regardless of your economic status, because, again, abortion bad, baby good. And then once the baby pops out, of course, conservatives don't give a shit. But still, I'm one of those women. I know what I'm talking about. No, I don't. Again, I'm sure, but like they're I wouldn't call it an incentive, Coyote, as much as I would call it a because an incentive implies things that will benefit you to do so. So like a child tax credit, for example, like that is an incentive, because if you have a kid, you'll get a tax credit, so you'll pay less in taxes because you have a child, which is objectively a good thing. And those things are going away. Conservatives are taking those things away. Conservatives don't want you to have a child tax credit. They want you to keep your kid. A conservative's incentive would be, okay, you should get married and have kids because you'll have a masculine, manly protector boy. The whole mindset of pregnancy and parenthood as a punishment for having sex is so bonkers to me. Ula, welcome in, by the way. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. And one of the things that I think is crazy on that note is the idea that, like, well, sex is for making babies. When there are millions and millions, if not more than that, examples of people who are trying to have a kid and who don't. Whether it's because of some genetic thing, whether it's because of the wrong time of the month. So this idea, so Ula be so fresh, is completely 100% correct. Also, welcome in. Hello, my name's Pat. Is 100% correct. And to go on to what Coyote's saying about the incentives for single women to keep their babies, again, this is one of those things, this is a conservative ideology, again, in general, I'm using that phrase again, in general, where if they can make your welfare benefits for having kids turn into a negative, you're going to think that welfare is bad, right? So the incentive is bad, therefore it's a bad program, therefore we should cut the program, therefore no more spending. That's what they want to do. Whereas in reality, there should be benefits to being in a partnered relationship as much, if not more, than being single and having a child. Because here's the fucking truth of it all. Life is stressful no matter what. Life's going to be stressful. You're going to be full of losses. Family members are going to die. You're going to lose jobs. Your natural disasters are going to take over and destroy things occasionally. They're going to have so many bad things happen to you. Something that we can control, like the economy, like child incentives, should not be another thing on top of all the other bad shit that's going to happen in our life. So that's why that's a typical ideology of socialism. Going back to what you were saying about taking your benefits away if you get married, that is by design because they want you, the taxpayer, to think, well, then this is a bad tax program, we should cut it. I'm always of the opinion, my last statement is always, you'd like taxes if they actually helped you. They just don't, because they go to a military-industrial complex to go bomb brown people in the Middle East and fucking make coups in South America and Central America, which is great. Hey.
Coverture held that no female person had a legal identity. At birth, a female baby was covered by her father's identity until she got married and switched to her husband.
That was the most wild thing I heard when I was listening to this earlier, was that like it hasn't been fully abolished. It's like, what? I do love that, because it just gives me the idea that so many men literally, and this is actually sad in my opinion, as a man and speaking from a man's perspective, like it is so fucking sad that so many men have lived their life basically just being like, I am a labor horse. I am made to work, bring money, sleep, eat, make baby, and then go back to bed, wake up and repeat. Like that is like, it is so fucking sad to me that has become such a like stereo that like that's how men existed. She's fucking dead on. It is like the idea that like so many men lack a genuine personality, lack interest, and that is the conservative thing. Okay, to talk about a little bit what she was talking about with no fault divorce being an incentive to actually get married. The reason why that's an incentive to get married is because, and I think she kind of said it, she touched on it a bit, but I'm going to try to elaborate a little further, is that if you can get out, you're not going to get in unless you're sure. And this is a good example. So my ex and I, when we were still together, we were together for 4 years, we talked about getting married quite a bit. That being said, however, there was a lot of badness in our relationship, and not badness in terms of like, not badness in terms of abusive, but like badness in terms of just incompatibility with one another. So, like it was a very easy thing to think, well, if I end up with this person, would we eventually get a divorce? And there was that answer that could be maybe. At the very least, you're going to go, well, I don't want to get a divorce, because nobody wants to get a divorce until the time comes, right? Like before you're married, you're not thinking about the divorce, right? You're thinking about the marriage. Now, when you're married, you could be thinking about the divorce. And so like, that's like, and you might actually think to yourself, I want the divorce. It should be, I hope not. Right. Sure, it should be, I hope not. Yes, that's actually a better way to say it. Instead of maybe, it should be, I hope not. And if your answers, are you going to get a divorce, is I hope not, that's way healthier. Now, what she was saying at the very end here about kind of like, I don't know what is there to be done except men not being so shitty. And here's where I come into play as a man. Now, I'm not here, and I will not necessarily say what women should do. What I think is that there's a big problem with people on the left. Now, I'm a leftist. Obviously, I talk about things all the time that preach leftist policy, yada, 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 which means I don't believe in the traditional conservative ideology of patriarchal domination with men and women, right? Okay, done with that. Now, that being said, however, I think that there is a massive problem with Democrats, liberals in America not having a positive message for men. I think that conservatives have capitalized the message from it. That's like the manosphere stuff. So like the Andrew Tates, the Aiden Rosses, the Myrons, the Fresh and Fit podcast, like that gives the manosphere podcasters their audience, because all the left usually says, liberals in the center and leftists, what they usually say to men, young men, is don't be racist, don't be homophobic, don't be sexist, which is all good. You shouldn't do those things. You should not be racist. You should not be homophobic, and you should not be sexist or anything like that. But that's all they're receiving. They're not getting a path forward. They're not being told, hey, by the way, here's all the great, beautiful things that you could get if you, studied more and had a more dynamic education. But anyway, that's my point, is that I think that liberals and leftists have not done a sufficient job. And I am of the opinion that there are certain voices out there that are on the left that do a better job about this type of subject. Obviously, I'm a Hasanabi head. I love Hassan. He's a great guy. I think he's one of those people. And I am self-serving in the way that I think I am too. I think that I am a leftist voice that can help give young men a different alternative. All right, goobers, it's time to end. It's time to get out of here. I've been going for too long. It's been too long. Too long. It is bedtime.